Okay, on this project, I'm going to go in this folder right here. It'll open for me. Here we go. In this folder, I have jan.html, Jan short for January. I've got action.js, it's an external JavaScript sheet. I've got style.css, which is an external style sheet. I've got two icon files, lilbills.ico and smile.ico. If I can open these icons up. This is what the smile.ico looks like, and it's 37 by 34 pixels. And this is lilbills.ico. It's 40 by 36 pixels. I'm going to use the smile.ico. And again, the three files that we're going to look at is the jan.html for January, action.js for the action, and style.css for the styles. So I'm going to highlight all three of these and edit with Notepad++. There we go. Here's my jan.html file. I'm going to run it in Firefox. I've already got a few things saved. As you can see, basically it's a table that stretches to the width of your window. So this is what it looks like when my laptop is fully stretched, when the window is fully stretched, the laptop rather. And if I minimize it to take half of the screen so that I have half of the screen code and half of it the output, you can see how everything is compacted, but you can still see the entire calendar, whether it's half the screen or full screen. Now we've got an image that floats to the left here, an image that floats to the right here. We got the same image that we can see in the browser tab, along with a title here that says January 2018. In this table, we've got the first table row stretches across 7 columns. The second table row has 7 table headers that will signify each of the days of the week. The third table row shows us the first week of January. The next table row shows us the second week. Next table row shows us third week. Next table row shows us fourth week. And the last table row shows us the 5th week of January. The 31st is the text area is disabled, so we can't actually, you can try to click in here, but it won't do anything, and it's also a different color. And the same thing for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of the future month of February. So the only thing we're dealing with is from January 1st to January 31st. So we have 31 active text areas, and we've got a couple of disabled text areas, just so that we have a nice full table with 7 text areas for each row. Alright, for jan.html, you've got your opening and closing HTML tags. And we've got a head that is closed up. So let's open it up and let's see what all's in the head. We've got a link. Link rel equals shortcut icon, href equals smile.ico, type equals image /x icon, and then you close up that link. That is what's pointing to the smile.ico, which is what you see up here in the browser tab. Next, we've got our title opening and closing tags, in between which we have January 2018, and you see that also in the browser tab. The next link we have is link rel equals style sheet, type equals text /css, href equals style.css, and this is how you close that link. That points to our external style.css style sheet, which we'll look at last. The next thing we have is script, type equals text /JavaScript, source equals action.js, and you end your script tag like this. And that's going to point to our action.js with all these functions inside, which we're going to look at after we finish looking at all the HTML file. So that's everything in the head tags. So I can close up the head. Then we've got a opening body tag that has the onLoad event set to call LoadMyStuff function. And the LoadMyStuff function is one of, I think, let's see, 5 or 6 functions. Let's see, we've got function RefreshMe, function RemoveEverything, function SaveMyStuff, function RemoveMyStuff, function LoadMyStuff. So we have 5 functions in our external JavaScript, one being LoadMyStuff. LoadMyStuff gets called as soon as jan.html opens in the browser. We'll look at that later. And let's open up our body tag so we can see everything, all the elements that are in this page. We start off with an opening table tag. This opening table tag has 1 table row, 2 table row, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 table rows before we have our closing table tag. So again, if you look at the very top, 1 row, 2 rows, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows in our table. Let's go back up. Let's check out our first TR tag, our first table row. In our first table row, again, the body onLoad is set to LoadMyStuff, empty parentheses, and all. LoadMyStuff is in double quotes. Again, though, here's our opening table tag, and here's our opening table row. Our opening table row starts at line 13 and goes all the way to line 28. After the opening TR tag, we've got a TH tag, and our TH tag goes from line 14 to line 27. We have 1 table header. It's the whole first row. So table header has an ID set to month and a call span set to 7. The ID set to month, in our style sheet, we have #month down here. It's got a couple of styles. Padding set to 0 pixels and text align is set to center. After the opening table header tag, we have an image, and here is our image. Image ID is set to left, source is set to smile.ico, alt is set to smiley, title is set to smiley in capitals, and height is set to 22, which represents pixels. That way, our little smiley face will fit. If you didn't put a height in here, let's misspell height, you're going to get how big the actual image is in the folder. And so it's bigger than I want it to be. I want to shrink it down so that it fits that table header better. So that's what height equals 22 did for me. So there's the image. ID equals left. #left is in our external style sheet here. And it's right here. Image #left. This image right here has a padding set to 0 pixels, a margin right set to 5 pixels, and a float set to left. That's what deals with this image right here. Alright, after that image, we just have some text here, January 2018. That's what you see right there. So you got the image that has a float of left. You got January 2018, which is set inside this table header that has a text align of center. So all these other things, this January 2018, the save button, the remove button, are all centralized in the header, while this image has a float of left and this image has a float of right. So that's how we get that appearance. Speaking of our button, here's our button. Input type equals button, ID equals save button, value equals save, on click equals save my stuff. So when we click this button, we're going to call the save my stuff function, and we'll go over those functions when we finish up this whole HTML web page first. So there's our save button. Let's go to our next button. Right there, input type equals button, ID equals remove button, value equals remove, on click equals remove everything. And I have a misspelled style here by putting a Z in front of it. Style equals visibility hidden. because I may not want to actually keep the remove button here. I want to show you the functionality of the remove button if you want to have one in your program, but you might not want to use it because the function that we have for this remove button, you either remove everything in every single one of these days or you remove nothing at all. And there's another way that you could remove individual things. So if I take this and spell it properly, style equals visibility hidden, and refresh here and refresh here, you see that remove button simply disappears. We can keep all the code intact, and if we just want to change our mind and say, oh no, I do want to use that button after all, just misspell this and bring it back, and you don't have to recode anything. Alright, so that's the remove button. And here's the next image. Image ID equals right, source equals smile.ico, alt equals smiley, title equals smiley, height equals 22. And again, ID equals right. If we go to our external style sheet, the image pound right has padding set to 0 pixels, margin left set to 5 pixels, and float set to right. So that's making this image float over here. Go back to the jan.html. We close our table header tag and we close our tr tag. So we've successfully done our first table row. Let's close that table row up. And let's go to the next one right here. Let's take all these dots off so each time I go over a table row I can just put the dot there and I don't lose my place. So our next table row, let's open it up. Very simple, very easy. In between the table row tags, we have 7 table header tags, 7 table header tag pairs. The first table header has opening th, sun, closing th. And that's giving us this table header right here with the word sun inside. Here's the next one. Mun, tu, wed, thur, fry, sat. End table row. So we've successfully and quickly looked at how to make this entire row right here. Let's close that table row up. Let's go to our first actual week. And this is just a comment, week 1. Let's open up this table row. Alright. Table row goes from this table row tag to down here, line 49. We have a bunch of TD tags, which instead of TH tags for table header, we're making table data cells. The first table data cell, followed by the opening tag, we have just the number 31. Then we have a text area tag. The opening text area tag goes from here to here. Text area, we've got a keyword disabled inside of that opening tag. And then this is what the closing text area tag looks like right there. And then we close the TD up. So inside our table data cell, we have the number 21 and we have a text area which has been disabled. That's what this 31st, representing December 31st, is doing. Now for the first, we go from this table data cell tag to this table data cell tag. We got 01 followed by text area. Now that we're using local storage for the actual active days of January, we're giving each text area its own unique ID. So for the first, we have text area with an ID set to 1. And then we close up the text area tag and we close up the TD. We do the same thing for all the other days in this row. TD 02, text area ID equals 2, close text area, close TD tag. TD 03, text area ID equals 3, end text area, end TD tag. TD 04, opening text area ID equals 4, closing text area, closing TD tag. TD 05, opening text area ID equals 5, closing text area, closing TD. Opening TD 06, opening text area ID equals 6, closing text area, closing TD, closing TR. So now we've successfully done this row. Let's close up that TR. So the first active table row that had active text areas in it, We start at the 31st, which is disabled, and then we go from the 1st to the 6th. Let's close that table row up. The next table row signifies week 2. We open up that. That does exactly the same thing as the previous table row did, but we're dealing with the days from the 7th to the 13th. There's the TD for the 7th with the text area inside with an ID of 7. There's the TD for the 8th with the text area with the ID of 8 inside. TD for the 9th, TD for the 10th, TD for the 11th, TD for the 12th, TD for the 13th, and closing TR tag. Close up that TR. Let's go to the 3rd week. Open that up. This goes from the 14th to the 20th. And it's all the same. A TD with a text area inside, a TD with text area, a TD, well, plus the date, TD with the date and the text area, la 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 la. So you copy and paste really this whole thing, and then just change the number inside. The number here, and the number here, and the number here, and number here. And you copy and paste that and put it here. And then just change your numbers accordingly. Here we go from the 21st to the 27th. And the 5th week, we go from the 21st. Oh no, I already did the 21st to the 27th. Sorry about that. Here. Week 5. We go from the 28th to the 3rd. So here we've got active text areas. They have IDs. This text area has the ID of 28. This one has ID of 29. This one has the ID of 30. This one has the ID of 31. But this text table data cell, we can actually give it a 01, 02, and 03. So all of them have double digits just to make it look more conformed, I guess. But anyway, the first has a text area that is disabled because these text areas we don't want to type in, and they're shaded darker and they're indicating February, and we're not dealing with February. So we've got that for the 1st, that for the 2nd, and that for the 3rd. And then we close our our table row tags. And then we finalize the table with an ending table tag, ending body, ending HTML. So that's everything for the jan.html web page file, the HTML hypertext markup language. Now, let's look at the style real quick, because that's quicker than the JavaScript. From top to bottom, our style CSS. For the table, we have width set to 98%, minimum width of 330 pixels, border of thick black inset, and I misspelled border collapse because this is what it looks like when you don't use border collapse set to collapse. And if we spell this properly and save it here and refresh it here, when I hit the refresh, watch how these spaces change. Everything gets a little tighter. There, that's a tighter calendar. That's using border collapse set to collapse. You might like how that looks better, or you might like to not use it. And if you don't want to use it, either omit this line or misspell it. If you misspell it, you could use it later without having to retype it by just taking the Z off. And that opens, gives us a little space between the first row and the second row. Alright, our table header tag gets these styles. Width set to 14%, border set to 3 pixels of blue inset, and background color set to light blue. That's for our Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Now, how do you get 14% for the width? Well, we have 7 rows. And if you take a calculator and do the fraction 1 divided by 7, that means 1/7. 1 divided by 7, if you hit the equals, you're going to get your decimal. The decimal is pretty long. It's 0.14 and all this other junk. I can just truncate all this other junk and go 0.14. I know 0.14 means 14%. And that's how I got width set to 14% for the table headers. Each table header here for each of the days of the week is going to be given a width of 14% of the table. So now when I open it fully, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday stretches to 14% of the wider width. When I make it smaller, it's a smaller, it's 14% of this table, this more narrow table. So percents are good. They give you a liquid layout, stretchability, flexibility. All right, our text areas. These are all of the things that we could type in, or if they're disabled, we can't type in. Resize is set to none, width is set to 98%, border is set to 3 pixels of light blue inset, and font size is set to 12 pixels. This is the font size. That's what 12 pixels looks like. If I misspell font size and take that style off, save this and refresh this, watch the size of these. It gets a little bit bigger. If I change font size from 12 pixels to 15 pixels, save it here and refresh here, you see it gets even larger. If I save it to something very large, like 25 pixels, save it and refresh, it gets so large that when my table is this small, it's kind of stupid, right? You can't really see what's going on. But if I open it to the full width of my laptop, that's not so bad. So if you want larger font there, what you'll compromise is your calendar will now have to have this scroll bar so that you can see the last row, because each of the text areas had to enlarge for the fact that the font size was bigger. So you kind of play with these numbers until you get it the way you want it. If you don't mind the scroll bar, that's fine, but I don't particularly care for it. So I'm going to put my font size back to my 12 pixels. That way, even when my calendar is only using half of the width of my laptop screen, I can still read, I can still see all of my rows of my calendar, and I can still read what's inside of each text area. I can see that pretty good. And when I open it up all the way, it looks small, but it's still legible. And again, there's no scroll bar. Now, if you write your life story in each of these, and you keep going, each one of these text areas is going to get a built-in scroll bar so that you can see everything from top to bottom that's inside of the text area. You know, that only makes sense. Of course, if you go smaller, you know, you really got a whole lot of scrolling to do before you get to the end, but at least you can see everything. It's functional. Okay, I don't want that. So let's just remove everything. All deleted, okay, and you could see that the delete buttons functionality worked. Everything disappeared. So that was the text area. Again, my image with the ID of left has padding of 0, margin right of 5 pixels, float of left. The image with the ID of right has padding of 0 pixels, margin left, 5 pixels, float right. And month, which was for this row up here at the very top, padding of 0 pixels and text align of center. Alright, so we're done with the style CSS. We've looked at all of that top to bottom. We've looked at our jan.html from top to bottom. Let's look at our action functions, which are being called at different times. Again, when this page is loaded, the first thing that gets called is the LoadMyStuff function. If there's nothing that was saved already, then LoadMyStuff won't pull anything up. LoadMyStuff will pull something up if it's previously saved. So let's look at our action.js. Let's look at all these functions. We have a RefreshMe function, which if I open that up, it's one single statement. Window.location.reload parentheses true semicolon. So whenever we see RefreshMe called, it's going to execute that one single statement. And what it does is basically it emulates hitting the refresh button right here without the user having to click it. And it's used to change these buttons to what they look like right now. Initially with no colored background, and the text says save on this button and remove on this button. When I click this save button, it changed to a lime green save for a couple of seconds and the word saved with an exclamation. But you see, after a couple of seconds, it goes back to the default. That's what the RefreshMe does. It takes us back to the default. Same thing for the remove. We go into a string of things that the removed button does, but then it goes from the removed lime green background and removed with an exclamation point text to our initial remove. That's what the RefreshMe does. All right, so let's close RefreshMe. Let's look at Save My Stuff. Let's look at Save My Stuff next, because that's what happens whenever we click something in any of these guys and hit Save button. It calls Saved My Stuff. So let's see how that works to save this stuff. Function Save My Stuff, empty parentheses, opening curly brace. First thing we're going to do is we're going to colorize those buttons. We're going to do that. We're going to colorize the buttons, and we're going to put a different word on the button. This colorizes it. Document.getElementById, parentheses, double quotes, save button, .style.background color equals lime in single quotes. So we have save button in double quotes and lime in single quotes, because the one statement, we don't want to have multiple quotes confusing our code. So double quotes is only enclosing save button, and single quotes is only enclosing lime. We've alternated what kind of quotes we're using. That gives us the lime background, and this changes the text from save to saved with an exclamation point. Document.getElementById, parentheses, double quotes, save button dot value equals saved in double quotes, semicolon. So that does the initial change to the button here. Those two statements. Now, to make each text area actually do some saving, we have two statements that do the saving. And the first statement, var v1 equals document.getElementById, parentheses, and single quotes 1 dot value, semicolon. What that does is, if there's something typed into this text area that has an ID of 1, it's going to take that value and it's going to put it into this variable called v1. We actually do have a value here. This value is going to be put into v1. Then in our second statement, we use local storage dot set item, and in parentheses we have k1 in single quotes, which is going to signify a key with a value of k1, and then a comma, and then v1. There's our v1 highlighted in green. Whatever is the value of v1, we're going to use this key value pair scenario in parentheses along with local storage.set item. So these two statements are what it takes to save whatever you type in here. Now, I tried to turn this into a for loop, and instead of having to copy and paste this over and over for every single text area 31 times, I tried to create a loop, but for whatever reason, my for loop wasn't working. So therefore, we have this really long-winded, verbose, redundant code for v1, for v2, for v3, all the way down to v31, because we have 31 active text areas. So var v31 equals document.getElementById, parentheses and single quotes 31 dot value, semicolon. and local storage dot set item parentheses single quotes K31 comma V31 semicolon. Those two statements. So now, after we have created storage spaces for every single text area to save whatever may be typed in these text areas, we are going to use set timeout, and in parentheses we are going to call the RefreshMe function, but we're not going to call the RefreshMe function until 1 second has elapsed. So set timeout will call RefreshMe after 1 second elapses. This particular line is what changes our save button to lime. It changes it back to what it looks like right now. Just save. That's important. Otherwise, if I comment this whole statement out and refresh the page and save, it'll save our stuff okay, but this saved button does not bounce back to its original default value. It stays saved. And if you refresh the page, it'll then default, but I don't want the user to have to hit this refresh button just to make this go back. So the RefreshMe emulates the refresh button. And to remind you again what the RefreshMe function looks like, it's up here, and all it has in its curly braces is this one little line, window.location.reload parentheses true semicolon. So that's a function that calls another function in there. The save my function calls RefreshMe at the end. Okay, so don't forget, for every single one of your text areas, you have to copy and paste this whole double thing and then change V1 to V2 and 1 to 2 and K1 to K2 and V1 to V2, and do that over and over and over. 2 turns into 3, turns into 4s, turns into 5s, all the way to 31. And then you do that set timeout, RefreshMe 1000. And that's the end of the Save My Stuff function. Now, let's close that function up. So we've looked at the RefreshMe function and we've looked at the Save My Stuff function. Let's look at the Load My Stuff, because once you've saved something with the Save My Stuff function, when you go out of this page and then you come back tomorrow or next month or whatever, the LoadMe function is what brings these back. If you don't have a LoadMe function, every time you come back to this page, you won't have what you saved. So it's the load my stuff function is important, and the body on load. So let's look at that load my stuff function next. It's down here. I also tried to make the load my stuff work with a for loop, and for whatever reasons I couldn't. So we have this repetitive code. We've got 2 lines of code that do it. The first one is var stored v1, which means our stored value 1, equals local storage.get item, and we're going to get this value based on whatever the key was. When we set them using key value pairs. When we get them, we just grab the key. So by getting the key, we get what this value is, and now we're going to stick it in this variable called stored v1. Okay, so the first statement, var stored v1 equals local storage.get item parentheses k1 in single quotes semicolon. That's the first part of it, the first statement. Then this if condition. If we have a value for stored v1, so if in parentheses stored v1, if that's true, we do have a value for it, then we're going to do what's in the block here, the if block in between these two curly braces. And it's a single statement, and it's this statement: document.getElementById, parentheses and single quotes, 1 dot value equals stored v1. So if we've typed something in here and it gets stored in this variable, if we use this condition to check whether there's a value there, and there is, then we are going to bring it back into the text area with this code: document.getElementById, parentheses, quotes, 1 dot value equals stored v1. These two statements, the if condition and this initial statement, gets copied and pasted 31 times for the LoadMyStuff function. And I swear I hate when I have to do this, because I know you can put this in a for loop and use the index, the changing index, each iteration's changing index to you know, stored v plus I or something like that. If stored v plus I, and then get element by ID, this would be the I. Value equals stored v plus I. And then every time 2 changes into a 3, the I would represent the change instead of having to do it over and over. But I have to do it over and over because I don't know what I was doing wrong in my for loop. So here, var stored v2 equals local storage dot get item, parentheses, single quotes, k2, semicolon, and then if, parentheses, stored v2, that's true, then in the curly braces, document.getElementById, parentheses, quotes, 2 dot value equals stored v2, semicolon. Copy and paste this here, and then change the v2 to v3, change the k2 to k3, change the stored v2 to v3, change the getElementById from 2 to 3, and stored v3 2 to v3. And you just do it over and over, changing those numbers from 3 to 4, from 4 to 5, from 5 to 6, all the way to 31. And there's the last one. Var stored v31 equals local storage dot get item, parentheses, single quotes, k31, semicolon, semicolon, followed by the next statement: if, parentheses, stored v31, then in the curly braces, document.getElementById, parentheses, single quotes, 31 dot value equals stored v31, semicolon, and close your curly brace for the if block. All right. Here's the ending curly brace for the LoadMyStuff function. So now, for every single one of these, no matter which type, and all of these, as long as you didn't misspell anything, as long as you changed each value to the next one in line so that it matches the IDs of all these text areas, 1 through 31, they will all work. So when I save all of them, saved, close it, go back here and run it again in Firefox, you see that they've all been correctly saved. So that's my LoadMyStuff function. And I just showed you how leaving the browser and coming back, the LoadMyStuff function made sure that everything we saved in every single one of these comes back. That's the LoadMyStuff. So let's close LoadMyStuff. We still have 2 other functions to look at. See how long that is when you don't have a for loop? Let's close that up. So we've looked at RefreshMe, we've looked at SaveMyStuff, we've looked at LoadMyStuff. Let's look at RemoveMyStuff. When we want to remove all of these things. When we click this remove button, it calls, well, actually when we click this remove button, we actually call remove everything. But that gives us pop-up boxes to make sure that we really want to remove. Because if you accidentally click this and then you change your mind, as soon as you click this, if you don't give yourself an out with these pop-up boxes, or these confirmation boxes, you'll hit remove and everything will disappear, and you might be like, oh man, I really didn't want to do that. I accidentally clicked this, or I changed my mind. So remove everything will give us a condition to change our mind. But before we look at that one, let's look at remove my stuff. When we do really want to remove my stuff, this is going to remove everything in all of the text areas. All right. Well, we want to colorize our remove button. So we have our note that says colorize button. We got two statements. Document.getElementById, parentheses and double quotes, remove button, because this particular button has an ID called remove button. After document.getElementById, parentheses, double quotes, remove button, we have dot style, dot background color equals lime, and lime is in single quotes. Again, because in this one statement, we want to alternate what kind of quotations we're using. Here we're using double quotes, here we're using single quotes, so they don't get confused. Background color is spelled with the C capitalized and everything else lowercase. So this makes our remove button turn lime and say removed. And as you can see, everything just disappeared because I removed everything. I said okay to that. Besides turning green, it says removed with an exclamation, and this what this statement does. Document.getElementById, parentheses, double quotes, remove button, dot value equals removed. So that's these two statements that makes this button look like this. Green removed. All deleted. Okay. And after a few seconds, it goes back to the default because the remove my stuff also uses the RefreshMe to refresh this. Now, interestingly, for my remove my stuff function, I was able to get a loop to work. And look at how much shorter your function can be if you can get the loop to work. It goes from line 125 to line 140. Look at that. I did not have to make repetitive code for each one of these text areas. Ultimately, this is what I want to do for all my functions, so I don't have repeating code. So let's look at our loop. Before the loop, I create a variable called k, and this k is going to represent the keys. So var k semicolon. Next, we have our for loop. For, and in parentheses, var I equals 1, semicolon, I less than 32, semicolon, I plus plus. So here I get to use an incrementer that starts at 1, and then the next iteration of the loop, it'll be 2, next iteration of the loop, it'll be 3, all the way to 31, as long as I is less than 32. So when I is 31, it'll still work one more time. When it gets to 32, it won't increment anymore, and it'll jump out of the loop. So we'll get from text area 1 to text area 31 with this nice handy loop. So here's the for part. Var I equals 1, I less than 32, I plus plus. In the middle of the curly braces is what the loop does. First thing is we take that k variable that we created and we set it to the letter k plus the value of I, which again starts off as 1. So with this line of code, k gets a value. Here we just create k, we don't give it a value. Here we give it a value, k1. So k will have the value of k1. So when we come down here to the next line, we have local storage dot remove item, parentheses k, semicolon. We're going to remove k1. k1 is the key for this first text area. So we're going to remove whatever's in here by removing the key. When you remove the key using local storage, you remove the whole value. Local storage dot remove item, parentheses k, semicolon. Again, k being K1, which is going to be whatever's in here. Whatever's in here will be removed. Now, we also have this statement, document.getElement by ID, parentheses I.value equals an empty string, as indicated by 2 single quotes. This also empties it out. So, I want to comment this out because my code works even if I don't have this line. I thought this line was here so that Internet Explorer browser would work, but I tested this and Internet Explorer browser didn't work. So if I don't need to have this line of code here at all, then I will just take it out. So let me see if this works without that line. And again, I'm working on the remove my stuff. So let me refresh the page. First, I'll make sure I saved this and refresh it. Now let me try to remove it. Remove. This will delete the entire grid. Yes. All deleted. Yes. And when this RefreshMe function worked, it took it out. Let me try this same page in another browser. Let me run it in Chrome and see if it still works. Now, because this is a different browser, this is a whole brand new save. So I'm just going to put a bunch of F's in the 17th. I'm going to save it. I'm going to remove it. Remove it. Okay. Oh, it took a while, but it worked. It took a few seconds, but this went back to default and the 17th disappeared. Let me try that again. Let me FFF it. Let me save it. Let me close out of Chrome. Let me go back in here and run it in Chrome again just to make sure that Chrome actually did save it in the 17th. And why isn't it opening? Run, launching Chrome, and there's my F's. F's on the 17th. All right. Now let me see if it removes it again. Okay. When this turns back, yeah, this turns back and this deletes it. So it works in Chrome. I can close out of this. Let me see if it works. Run it in, well, if I want to try it in Opera, I have to take the address, highlight it, copy it, and then paste it in Opera to make it work. So let me go on the first and let me type the word fly. Let me save it in Opera. Let me close out of Opera. Let me open Opera again. Manually, I have to manually open it. And just to be sure, let me get out of that particular tab, right click it and paste it and go again. And you can see that the browser actually did save fly on the first. Now let's try to remove fly. Okay. All deleted. And once this defaults back, it also removes it at the same time that this button changes back. It removes it. So it works in Opera. You can see if I try to run it in an Internet Explorer, it just doesn't work. I'll open this all the way up. I'll put something in the 31st. Let's first allow the blocked content. Let me hit a bunch of Z's in the 31st. Hit save. It says saved. It says saved, but it's not refreshing. I'll even hit the refresh. Okay, I manually hit refresh because this JavaScript refresh did not work. But let me close out of this and let me try to run that in the Internet Explorer again. I don't think it bothered to save it in local storage at all. I see, and it didn't. Allow blocked content. Yeah, so my code doesn't work for Internet Explorer, but it does work for Firefox, Chrome, and Opera. All right, let's see, where was I? So this document.getElement by IDI dot value equals nothing. Wow, I guess I needed to put that back. Let me put that back and try it in Internet Explorer again, because I think that was the reason I had that line. I thought that line was supposed to work for Internet Explorer. So run NIE, allow block content, it's 31st with a bunch of Z's, save, saved. Again, it's not refreshing. It's not refreshing. Let's hit refresh. It looks like it's saving, but if I leave and come back a later day, see, it's just not saving in Internet Explorer at all. All right, so forget Internet Explorer for now. And forget this line of code because I don't need it. So basically my for loop just gives k the value of the letter k plus whatever the increment is, and then we use local storage.remove item with the variable k, whatever the value it is for each iteration of the loop. So first it'll be remove item k1, remove item k2, remove item k3, and it'll just keep looping until it removes everything all the way from key k1 to key called k1 to the key called k31. I'll remove all that. And here's the set timeout right before the ending of the remove my stuff curly brace. We have this line of code. Set timeout, RefreshMe, 3000. This means that in 3 seconds it will call the RefreshMe, and that's what changes these save and remove buttons to their default. Again, if I comment that out, and again we're looking at the remove my stuff function right now, and I put something on the third here, blah blah blah, save it. Now let's try remove it. Cancel. Okay, it doesn't do anything for that, but okay. All deleted, okay. And actually it didn't even remove it. It didn't change the lime back to default, and it did not remove it. So this RefreshMe is exceptionally important. This is an important line of code to make our local storage work, to remove it. So let's save this, let's refresh this, and now let's try to remove it. Now that I have the set timeout that'll call the RefreshMe function in 3 seconds after I click this, let's see what happens. This will delete the entire grid. Do you really want to delete everything? Okay. All deleted. Okay. 1, 2, oh, in less than 3 seconds, this went back to default, and it did the remove. All right, so there's the remove my stuff function. If you don't like the 3 seconds, you could change it to 2 seconds or 1 second or however many seconds you want. If you want that button to stay green for 10 seconds, you would change this to 10,000 milliseconds. I don't want it to sit there that long. I think 3,000 milliseconds, which is 3 seconds, is good enough. So let's close up the remove my stuff function. And last but not least, let's look at the remove everything function. This is actually what this button calls. But you'll see when we open up the remove everything function that inside the remove everything function, we call the remove my stuff function. So this button doesn't directly call it, it indirectly calls it by calling a function that includes this function call inside of it. So let's look at it. Remove everything. All right, the first thing and this goes from line 6 to line 20. So it's not a long function. So the first thing we do in our function remove everything is we've got the empty parentheses, the opening curly brace, we create a variable called x. var x semicolon. So we don't set a value to it yet, but we do create the variable. Now we have this if condition, and that goes from this to this. You see the outer parentheses in red? All right. This confirm keyword is going to create a pop-up that gives you two choices. It gives you, well, let's hit it again. Let's hit the remove button. Okay, it gives you an OK button and it gives you a cancel button. This OK button is if you have the confirm box set equal to true, that means that you clicked the OK button. So the confirm dialog has this inside. It has a string that says this will delete the entire grid. As you can see, that's the first line on that confirm pop-up. We have a \n here to go to a new line in which we have our second line. Do you really want to delete everything? And then you can see that down here. Do you really want to delete everything? Okay, so the confirm has a couple of strings, and if it is double equal to true, that means the user clicked the OK button. So if the user clicks the OK button, we're going to do what's inside of these curly braces. We're going to give X a value of all deleted. And then we're going to call the RemoveMyStuff function. This is where the RemoveMyStuff function gets called and actually runs at this point. Now, if you click the cancel button, then this statement won't be true, so we won't do what's in these curly braces. We'll jump to the else and we'll do what's in these curly braces. We'll give X the value of the string OK, nothing is deleted. So X has two different values, all deleted if you click the OK button, or OK, nothing is deleted if you click the cancel button. If you click the OK button, we're going to call the RemoveMyStuff function. If you click the cancel button, the only thing we do is pop up OK, nothing is deleted. Or actually, X has the value of OK, nothing is deleted. We don't pop anything up until down here. Outside of these curly braces, or these curly braces, outside of both of them, we have all by itself before the end of the function, we have alert X. So this is where we get this pop-up that either says all deleted or it says OK, nothing is deleted. So if I click OK, it's going to say all deleted and it's going to call RemoveMyStuff. It's going to do these two things. If I click OK, all deleted, click OK from that all deleted, and this turns back to default and everything is deleted. Let's save something else here, blah blah blah. Save it. It's on the second. Now let's remove it. Okay, do you really want to delete everything? Now we're going to click the cancel button. So when we click the cancel button, X is going to have the value of OK, nothing is deleted. And then when we get down here to alert X, that's what we're going to see because we click the cancel button. OK, nothing is deleted. Then you click the OK button, and the remove didn't even change to lime and say removed because we didn't choose to do that. We didn't choose this. So remove, cancel, OK, nothing is deleted, and nothing gets deleted. Nothing happens to the remove button. It doesn't change colors and it doesn't change the text on it. All right, so that's the end of the function remove everything. So when we click the remove button, it calls remove everything, which creates a message variable. It gives us a confirm pop-up that if we click OK, it'll do this. If we click cancel, it'll do this. And then we alert a pop-up with either all deleted or nothing is deleted. And if nothing is deleted, we don't bother to call RemoveMyStuff. So that was the importance of creating two different remove functions. One that gives us the option to change our mind. If we click this and go, oh no, I really don't want to do that, then no harm. Or, oh yeah, I really do want to do that. And then it'll do it. So with that, I've went over all 5 functions in the external action.js JavaScript. So close all this up. We've went through all 3 files. Open this up, and one more time I'll show you how it works. It's important to test every single text area just in case you misspelled something. So I'm just going to put a bunch of random anything just to fill up these text areas, just to put something in every one. So every key value pair from K1 to K31, every key is going to have a different value, or the same, depending. See, I mean, it's going to have the same because I texted the same thing over and over again, but it doesn't matter what I type because it's based on a key. This text area is going to have K1 key. This text area is going to have K2 key, K3 key, K31 key. So let's save it. Saved. Back to default. Let's close it. Let's go back in here. And since I did all that saving in Firefox, I can just double click on this because I have my default as Firefox. So you see everything in here is still here. If I remove it, click OK. I want to remove everything, all deleted, removed. At this point it says removed in green. Click this. That goes back to default and everything goes away. Okay, so you can just play with this, and you can make you can do this for every month of the year. Create a different set of data to save, and you might want to remind yourself that rent is due here, and maybe cable's due here, maybe the car is due here, and maybe this is payday, and this is payday. And you just might want to remind yourself of that stuff. You can save it. Now you've created your January, and you could play with it later. Let's say you paid rent. You might come here and go down and say paid, however much you paid. Now you click save, go away, go back another day when you pay something else, and you still have your information that you paid this. Now on payday, you might say how much you made. We save it and go away, go back another day, and your rent is still showing and your payday is still showing. So every time you go in here, you can add something else. Now, I remember I mentioned maybe not using the remove button, because if we try this remove, it's going to delete the entire grid. So you either delete everything or you don't by using the remove button. Now, if I go back in my jan.html code and I get rid of this remove button. So how do I get rid of the remove button? I got to go into the body, and I have to find my remove button, which is in the first table row. There's the image, there's that button, save button. Here's the remove button. Here's that style equals visibility, visibility hidden. All right. I properly spell style equals visibility hidden in double quotes. Refresh this and refresh this. Now I have no way to click that button because I can't see it. Even though I'm clicking where it was, it's not doing anything, which means it's not accessing any of that remove code, either of those removes. So now what happens if I want to make a change or delete something, I just highlight. I just go in here and highlight and hit my backspace, and I save this again. Now it is saving that there's nothing there. On the 10th, there's nothing. So if I go here and run it again, you can see that I've successfully got rid of that by using just my save button. Or I could go down here to car. I could either highlight it and hit the backspace, or I could hit the delete key. Now look, if I delete it or highlight it and back out of it, and I don't save it, now look at the 29th. I have to hit the save button. Otherwise, when I close out of here and I run this again in Firefox, it's going to come back. So the important thing, if you don't use that and you just want to alter things on a text area by text area basis, whatever changes you make in here, let's say, you just totally change it. Flowers, $100. If you don't click the save button and you just shut out of here and you run it, the car is going to come back because the car is still actually saved in local storage. This save button is the only thing that you've got to make your changes. So you hit flowers, $100. Now save it. Now everything that has been changed will be saved. Go out of here, run it in Firefox again, and now it's flowers, $100. So you can, as you can see, you don't have to deal with the delete button and those delete functions because as it stands, the delete is an all or nothing deal. It will delete everything, and I don't think you really want that. I think you want to be able to make changes on a day-by-day basis, which you can do that fine and dandy with just your save button. So the choice is yours. You can just use the save button, or you can utilize a remove button that removes everything and uses 2 more functions.